Hey everybody, so welcome back. Here we are in the next video where we want to talk about the gallery and the selection of items within the gallery for programmatic control. So what you will not notice, at least at first glance, is I have a gallery that's here, and inside of the gallery, the idea is that I should be able to select or click on a row in the gallery, and then I'll be able to identify if something is clicked or not clicked, okay? I want you to take notice of the screen the way that it is right now, okay? So I've got something up here that says, is a grid item selected? It says no, and you'll notice that my save button says save. You'll notice that I'm still anticipating what the next new record is going to be, and then of course I have a blank value so that I can do, you know, some other item or new item, and then I can save off that new record. Now, what happens if I want to modify that last new item? Or better yet, let's modify the first record. So I'm going to click on the first record. Notice when I did that, now the button changes its context to update, and I also have this flag up here that says, yes, not only have I selected an item in the grid, but I know what item. I said true 1. If I did 2, true 2. If I do the last item where it says new item, true 6. Okay, so I've got all of that information in there. And then more importantly, I'm going to collapse this video with the previous video. So this video for, let's see, if I go back to my bulleted list here, where we're talking about 3 and 2, I'm going to collapse all of these together into this same video. And so what is going on here is that when I click off, I clicked in a white space, right? And that's going to click off of it. So clicking off of it is not a function of the gallery. And also the gallery.selected, its item is always going to be the first item in the list if nobody's interacted with it. In other words, there's always a state there. So in order to do or pull off what I had to pull off here, I had to create a bunch of additional functionality. Seems so simple and logical because this is how applications behave. However, again, in the Power Platform, you can't take for granted the things that you normally think that applications should or shouldn't do, because you have to program all of these little nuances into the app. And that's why sometimes the main stuff is really easy, but the nuance things can take a little bit of thought and time. So let's work our way backwards. Let's start with the easy item in here, okay? And so I have this background deselect, okay? And I have its transparency, or its color set to transparency. If I change the color to red, you will see that essentially this is nothing more than an icon. So I went to insert, I did to icon, come here, and I went all the way down to the bottom, and there is this rectangle. And so that's what I use. And then I just adjusted the size of the rectangle. And then I right-clicked over here and I said reorder, and I said send it back. That's why it's at the very, very bottom of the of all of the items on the particular screen. And then what I had to do is on select, I had to essentially toggle, not toggle, bad choice of words. I had to change my Boolean variable manually. And so it's important that I do this manually and I don't do a toggle, because a toggle would essentially, it's just, whoops, instead of saying just change this to false, I would simply just toggle it by saying not selected. And so that would be, this would be a toggle, right? But I don't want a toggle in this case because I'll get unexpected behavior. I need to very explicitly, sorry, I can't type and think at the same time here. I have to very explicitly set these, or this Boolean value to certain behaviors at certain areas. So let me get rid of this obnoxious red color because it's driving me a little bonkers here. But in any event, that sits behind. And so it works when I'm not clicking on a control. I click off into a white area. All right, so that brings me over to the first item that we talked about, and that is the selected Boolean switch. I'm using this value, this Boolean value, to determine whether or not something is clicked inside of the grid. And if so, what is that? And so to get that what is it, then I can use the built-in gallery functionality for that. But just to be able to tell if something's been clicked or not clicked, I have to capture that information in the Boolean value. So first it is set to false, right? And so nothing happens until I go and I click on the gallery. I go into this item here. So let's change this to, let's see, on select. And here is that same Boolean value, but I'm saying when something is selected or clicked on, right? Just flip the bit to true. And that's perfect. All right. And so now I know that it's been clicked because I used the property within the gallery that says on select. And so I'm able to toggle that value. And now let's go and look at this. I'm doing a couple of different things, and I have a concatenate statement that I'm using here to do all of that. But what I want to show you is this is the name of my gallery memory collection, right? Okay, and you can see that over here. Here is the gallery memory collection. Let me go back to this item. And so what I'm doing is I'm doing it dot selected, and then I'm bringing back column 1. So the selected property of the gallery memory collection. So this is what you probably would be thinking about initially, that you could check and just say, hey, listen, if gallery memory collection, in my use case, dot selected dot column 1 is null or is blank, it doesn't work like that because it's never null, it's never blank, it always has something in that selected value or property. And in this particular instance, or your instance, whatever the first item in that gallery is, that's what the value is going to be. It's always going to be the first one. So you need this additional Boolean value to test or to check against that. And so now with the bit flipped on, it now goes from black to green, and then from this specific information about what was actually selected, specifically bringing back column 1, I know true and I knew the column number. I'm doing the same thing here in this field where I'm basically just setting the default value to whatever the item is, the max value of the item is that I showed you last time, what is here, and then I'm just adding the 1 to it. And so, you know, all of this needs to happen here as well. Under the save button, I've got the same thing. I'm running a bunch of different statements under here, specifically a patch statement, but I also need to make sure that if the item is, after it's saved, if it's a new item, I need to go ahead and set the item to false. Also, if it's a patch item, I need to set it to false. And then I need to reset the fields in, you know, this little tiny mini form here. Disregard this last item here. This is something I wanted to talk about a little bit later. But in any event, I'm not going to get into the specifics of the patching, but just know that I am going to come back here a little bit later, and we're going to talk about this in writing simpler or better code. And so that's pretty much it for this particular video. I really just wanted to show you about how to use the selected property in conjunction with just a simple Boolean value to determine if something is selected or not. Because a lot of times I see developers creating multiple screens unnecessarily, and so there's kind of a best practice around when to create another screen, when to not create another screen, when to provide things in a light box, or maybe you're used to the term modal window, depending on if you're a web developer or if you're a desktop developer. If you're a desktop, you'll say modal. If you're a web developer, it'll be like a light box or a jQuery pop-up box. But in any event, so that's particularly what I wanted to show you in this video. We'll see you in the next video, where what we're going to talk about is the context variables as it relates to screen navigation. And one of the other areas, just before I go, I want to show you on the selected, notice this item over here. When I have selected an item, I now have a navigational component, because when I don't have anything selected, that navigational component isn't there. So that's kind of the setup for the next video. Okay, we'll see you in that one. Talk to you soon.